Hey guys, tonight we're sinking slowly into one of the oldest, strangest, and most beautifully bizarre origin stories humanity ever came up with. Picture this. You're standing on the surface of the Earth, but instead of imagining a rocky orb in infinite black space, you imagine the ground under your feet resting gently atop a massive ancient turtle. Its shell is broad, curved, and impossibly old. Its eyes move like they've seen the rise and fall of everything. And below it, oh, just more turtles. Maybe elephants too, depending on who you ask. You probably won't believe this, but for thousands of years, people genuinely believed that the entire universe, yes, everything, was balanced on the back of a giant turtle. And tonight, you're going to find out why. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. Drop that in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your slow descent into ancient Indian cosmology, where turtles are more than turtles. They're cosmic symbols, load-bearing metaphors, and perhaps even sly philosophical devices. The ancient Indian universe wasn't a static stage. It breathed, it transformed, it slept and woke in endless rhythms. The people who lived thousands of years ago along the banks of the Sarasvati and Ganges rivers didn't just sit around with clay pots and chanting rituals. They pondered infinity. They debated the nature of time, space, and reality. And they painted their answers in myths that feel like dreams. In these dreams, Earth wasn't hanging in space like a marble. Instead, it was something more poetic, something alive. In one version, it was a flat disk resting on the backs of 4 cosmic elephants, who in turn stood on the back of a giant turtle named Akupara, or sometimes Kurma. That turtle floated in the primordial ocean, a theme you'll keep running into like a recurring melody. Not a salty blue ocean, but the cosmic one, stretching forever in every direction, timeless, dark, and humming with potential. Now, this isn't just one fringe belief tucked away in a dusty scroll. The idea of the world resting on a turtle shows up in multiple layers of Indian philosophical and mythological thought. The Vedas, the oldest sacred texts of Hinduism, don't name the turtle directly in the earliest hymns, but the idea of a cosmic ocean and of life resting atop something steady and ancient is right there, baked into the hymns like honey into ghee. Later texts, like the Puranas, get much more creative. They give the turtle a name, a role, a personality. You'll meet him more formally in the next section. But just know, this turtle isn't just carrying the earth. He's holding up metaphysics, time, and the drama of gods and demons. And maybe, just maybe, he's also holding up your sense of what's real. But wait, was this meant literally? Did people believe a giant reptile floated through space with the earth on its back? That's the funny thing. Historians still argue whether these ancient people meant this as a poetic metaphor, a sacred truth, or just the best science available at the time. Some philosophers say the ancients were pointing to a deeper truth, about balance, about slowness, about permanence beneath all change. Others think it was more about narrative. How do you describe the unseeable structure of reality to someone without a telescope? And then there are the fringe bits. Did you know there are obscure temple carvings in Odisha that show a turtle lying beneath Mount Meru, the mythological axis of the universe? Some even suggest the shell represents the dome of the sky, so the world isn't on the turtle. It is the turtle. Try falling asleep now while pondering that cosmic identity crisis. You lie back and try to imagine what kind of mind dreams up a reality where time begins with a yawn from a cosmic turtle. It's different from the Big Bang model you've probably heard 1,000 times, where the universe explodes into existence and just keeps expanding into silence. The ancient Indian vision is gentler, slower, deeper, more like a sigh than a bang. A world that doesn't rush but waits. that doesn't explode but blooms. And right in the center of it, holding it all together with slow, patient strength, is the turtle. Now you might be thinking, sure, that's a cute bedtime image, but it's also kind of ridiculous, right? Well, here's the twist. Scientists today still don't know what the universe is on. We talk about space-time, we model energy curves, we invoke gravity like it's a god. But ask a physicist what the universe is on, and they'll tell you the question itself might not even make sense. In that weird way, ancient people asking, "What is the world balanced on?" weren't being silly, they were being profound. Because turtles, unlike some mythic beasts, don't move fast. They don't rush through stories. They carry things slowly, steadily, without complaint. That makes them a perfect symbol for how the universe might hold itself together, not through speed or aggression, but by gentle support. That's what you're resting on tonight. A calm, cosmic carrier with a shell like polished obsidian and eyes like ancient stars. And as you listen to the old tales drift into each other like ripples on a quiet pond, you start to see what they saw. A cosmos held not by force, but by meaning. Not by chaos, but by care. You're drifting now, weightless, just above the trembling edge of time. All around you, the universe breathes, not in one great gasp like the Big Bang, but in a slow, rhythmic pulse. Inhale. Exhale. This is how the ancient Indian philosophers saw the cosmos. Not as a straight line from creation to heat death, but as a circle, or better yet, a spiral. Expanding, contracting, again and again, forever. Welcome to the Vedic universe. You're floating above the oldest sacred texts in Indian history, the Vedas, composed somewhere between 1500 and 500 BCE, depending on which scholar you ask. And they do still argue about that, by the way. These ancient hymns are not bedtime poetry, even if they feel like it now. They're repositories of philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, ritual, and yes, cosmology. And woven among their verses, like golden threads in a lotus petal, are visions of how time works on a cosmic scale. Time, for the Vedic thinkers, wasn't a clock. It was an ocean. It rolled in great waves, each one called a kalpa, or aeon. Imagine it like this. Each time you breathe in your sleep tonight, an entire universe is born. And each time you exhale, it dissolves back into nothingness. Creation, preservation, destruction. This is the rhythm of existence. Not a one-time event, but an eternal performance. You've got Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer, all playing their roles in an infinite cosmic ballet. And this is where things get weirder and more wonderful, because the universe doesn't just come and go. It does so in precise, staggeringly large cycles. One kalpa lasts about 4.32 billion years, which, you probably won't believe this, is eerily close to the current scientific estimate of Earth's age. Coincidence? Historians and physicists still debate whether this was just poetic grandeur or some kind of freaky, intuitive precision. Either way, you're now floating through a calendar that makes Google's feel like a sticky note. In this vision, turtles start to make sense. What other creature lives long enough, moves slowly enough, and appears ancient enough to serve as the metaphorical backbone of this kind of timekeeping? A rabbit? Too twitchy. A lion? Too flashy. But a turtle? A turtle glides through centuries without complaint. You glance down and see one now. Not just any turtle, but one the size of a continent. Its shell is ringed with the symbols of the zodiac. Its eyes blink every 1,000 years. On its back, the world rests, flat, round, or lotus-shaped, depending on the storyteller. And beneath its feet, the dark waters of Pralaya, the ocean of dissolution, where the world waits between incarnations. But don't imagine this like a dusty myth. The thinkers who described this weren't rambling mystics. They were systematic, even scientific, in their way. They charted lunar eclipses, tracked solstices, and built cosmological models that were more like nested Russian dolls than linear chains. Each world sits inside another, inside another, inside another. It's enough to make your head spin, and that's before you've had your sleepy time tea. One quirky tidbit: according to some interpretations of the Mahabharata, yes, that Mahabharata, the epic longer than the Iliad and Odyssey combined, time flows differently in different realms. A single day in the world of the gods might equal 1,000 years on Earth. So if you ever feel like your Mondays are lasting forever, now you know why. You lie back and let that wash over you. Time is relative, creation is cyclical, and turtles are swimming under everything like patient, scaly metaphors. What's wild is that this vision of time, long, slow, looped, feels oddly comforting. It means no ending is final, no disaster is permanent. Everything comes around again. But not everything in the Vedas was so clear-cut. Scholars still argue over how literally these cycles were meant to be taken. Were they metaphorical ways to express deep truths about impermanence and rebirth? Or did ancient seers genuinely believe that universes rise and fall like chest movements during a nap? You're free to decide for yourself. Just don't be surprised if your dreams tonight involve a turtle breathing the stars in and out like specks of dust. And speaking of turtles, there's one in particular you're about to meet. He's not just any cosmic reptile, he's divine, majestic, and oddly helpful in a crisis. You drift a little deeper now, like you're sinking gently into warm water that smells faintly of jasmine and stardust. Somewhere beneath you, the surface of the cosmic ocean begins to shimmer, a ripple, then a slow movement. And then, there he is, Kurma, the cosmic tortoise. You probably weren't expecting your main character tonight to be a shelled reptile who moonlights as a god, but here we are. Kurma is one of the avatars of Vishnu, the god who preserves the world and occasionally gets very creative about how he does it. He's the second avatar, right after Matsya the fish, but unlike the fish, Kurma doesn't swim aimlessly through legend. He has a job to do, a big one. Now, here's the mainstream historical fact. The tale of Kurma appears most famously in the Bhagavata Purana and the Mahabharata, texts compiled over centuries, somewhere between 400 BCE and 1000 CE. In this story, the gods and demons are in a bit of a cosmic pickle. They need to churn the ocean of milk, the very fabric of the universe, to obtain the nectar of immortality. Casual Tuesday activity. But they don't have a butter churn, so they get creative. They use Mount Mandara as the churning rod and the serpent Vasuki as the rope. But when they try to spin the mountain in the ocean, it sinks. Not ideal. Enter Kurma. With divine patience and zero fanfare, Vishnu takes the form of a massive tortoise and slides beneath the mountain, lifting it effortlessly on his back. No boasting, no fireballs, just quiet support like the cosmic version of, "I got this." He holds the mountain steady, while the gods and demons twist and pull and churn the ocean into froth, releasing treasures, poisons, and celestial beings like candy from a piñata. And here's the thing. You can't help but love Kurma. He's not flashy. He doesn't steal the scene. He's the platform, the stability, the very ground beneath an impossibly grand cosmic event. If you ever feel underappreciated, just remember, somewhere in the universe, a turtle is literally holding up the weight of a spinning mountain so other people can get their magic juice. Now for the fringe part. Some lesser-known interpretations claim Kurma wasn't just a divine tortoise. He was the symbolic representation of the human body, or even the earth itself. Some tantric traditions saw his shell as the protective shield of consciousness, with the mountain representing the spine and the churning symbolizing the activation of divine energy. Still others saw the entire event as a metaphor for meditation. Your mind is the ocean, your breath the rope, and Kurma the silent support beneath it all. Suddenly your yoga class doesn't sound so ambitious, does it? Of course, philosophers still debate whether Kurma was intended as a literal being, a symbol, or a cosmic allegory folded into devotional mythology. And honestly, that ambiguity is part of the magic. Ancient Indian cosmology wasn't in the business of drawing hard lines between science, religion, and poetry. It lived in the in-between. It still does. You glance back down at Kurma, steady as ever. His shell glows faintly with the colors of deep space. The mountain atop it spins lazily, and around it dance the gods and asuras, pulling at their celestial rope like they're in a tug-of-war match that decides the fate of everything. Which, in this case, they are. And you? You're just hovering there, watching, lulled by the rhythm of it all. The swirl of cosmic butter, the slow creak of the mountain, the occasional splash as another divine treasure erupts from the froth. You catch a glimpse of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, rising from the churned sea on a lotus. Somewhere behind her, a white horse made of light bolts free. And beneath it all, Kurma remains silent, unmoving. In this ancient vision, turtles don't scurry, they don't flee, they endure. Kurma teaches by existing, by being the quiet one who makes all things possible. And when the churning is done and the nectar found, he disappears. No curtain call, no thank you needed, just poof. Mission complete. You float there for a while longer, because who wouldn't want to linger in a myth like that? A myth where the universe gets churned like a giant cosmic milkshake. A myth where gods and demons need each other to succeed. A myth where the hero never says a word. And maybe, just maybe, this is the point where the bedtime story sneaks up on you with its depth. You start to see the universe differently. Not as a void, not as a machine, but as something held, supported, gently, deliberately, patiently. Like a mountain on a tortoise, like you in your bed, like all of us, floating in a cosmos that somehow knows how to carry itself. You blink slowly, the afterimage of Kurma's glowing shell still fading from your mind's eye. But before you can settle into that comforting vision, the scene begins to stir again. The ocean around you thickens, not with water this time, but with story, dense, rich, mythic, and at the center of it all, a churning motion, wild and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. You're floating just above the great churning of the ocean of milk, the Samudra Manthan. If Kurma was the stagehand, this was the play. And oh, what a play it was. Remember Mount Mandara? The giant mountain the gods and demons used as a makeshift butter churn? They weren't just trying to whip up some divine dairy. No, they were after something a little more precious. The Amrita, the nectar of immortality. The elixir that would grant eternal life to whoever possessed it. Small stakes, really. On one side, you've got the devas, the celestial beings, the gods of light, order, and, if we're honest, occasionally questionable behavior. On the other side, the asuras, the demons, not evil in the Western sense, but more like the chaotic, mischievous, overly ambitious cousins of the gods. They're always crashing the party, and occasionally trying to steal the spotlight. But tonight, they're working together, a rare truce brokered by desperation. Mortality, after all, is the one thing they both feared losing to each other. The scene is absurd in the best way. A giant mountain as the rod, a giant snake, Vasuki, wrapped around it as the rope. And both teams, gods and demons, pulling at either end, circling and spinning the mountain with enough force to make the stars tremble. And there beneath it all, as you remember, is Kurma, holding everything steady like the calmest stage tech in cosmic theater history. As they churn the ocean, things start to emerge. Not just the Amrita, but an entire magical inventory. First comes the Hala Hala, a deadly poison so potent it threatens to destroy the universe. But don't panic. Shiva, the great destroyer, swallows it and holds it in his throat, which turns blue and earns him the nickname Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. Casual life-saving, as usual. Then come the Ratnas, the treasures. A white elephant, a wish-fulfilling tree, a divine horse, a conch shell, a flying chariot. Even the goddess Lakshmi herself, beauty incarnate, rises from the froth like a dream you almost forgot you were having. One quirky footnote: somewhere in this mythic rummage sale, There's a divine physician with a pot of herbs and a cow that grants endless nourishment, because why not? And finally, when the churning is almost too intense to bear, the Amrita surfaces. Golden, glowing, humming with eternal life. The Devas snatch it up naturally, and the Asuras are left grumbling, as usual. But not before one of them, clever and sneaky, disguises himself as a god and drinks a sip. Vishnu, ever the cosmic bouncer, notices and slices his head clean off, but since the nectar had already touched his tongue, the demon becomes immortal in two halves. Rahu and Ketu, destined to chase the sun and moon across the sky in an eternal game of cosmic tag. You know those lunar eclipses? Yeah, that's them. Philosophers still debate whether this entire story is a metaphor for spiritual awakening, or perhaps alchemical transformation. Some say the ocean is your subconscious, the mountain is your focus, the churning is your discipline, and the nectar, enlightenment. Others say, no, this is ancient memory encoded in myth, an echo of rituals, ancient chemistry, or even political negotiations among warring tribes who had to share resources under the watchful gaze of some turtle-shaped totem. You float there, half amused, half awestruck. It's like watching an epic movie that somehow also feels like your own dream. Every element is exaggerated, shimmering, larger than life. And yet it all makes sense in that sleepy, mythic logic your mind slips into just before it nods off. And let's not ignore the practical brilliance of the whole thing. Ancient stories didn't have footnotes, but they had layers. The churning of the ocean gives you a blueprint for cooperation, an acknowledgement of chaos, a warning about poison, a celebration of patience, and of course, at the very bottom of it all, a turtle just doing his job. You return once more to Kurma, still there, unmoved by the divine chaos above him. He's not in it for glory, he's in it for balance, support, stillness, and somehow that makes him the wisest one of all. Above him, the ocean slowly settles. The gods return to the heavens. The demons slink back into their murky lairs. The nectar is guarded. The snake slithers away. And you? You drift a little deeper into your blanket, your breath syncing with the ancient rhythm of that cosmic churn, feeling, just faintly, like the universe might be a little more stable than it seems. You're drifting above the quiet waves now, the frenzy of the churning long behind you. The ocean of milk has stilled, and a breeze stirs the surface, though you're not sure where it's coming from. There is no sky, no horizon, just the gentle swell of myth and memory. And now, rising slowly through the shimmering mist, something begins to take shape. Not a mountain, not a turtle, but a flower. A single, enormous lotus. Its petals unfold lazily, revealing a golden center so radiant you can't quite look directly at it. And there, reclining in perfect serenity upon the blossom, is Vishnu himself. Not in his turtle form this time. Just Vishnu, the preserver, cradled in the soft folds of the cosmic lotus, his eyes half closed, maybe dreaming, or maybe remembering. Now you might ask, wait, weren't we talking about turtles? Yes, but in ancient Indian cosmology, turtles aren't the only base layer. Sometimes reality is stacked on turtles, yes, but other times it blossoms from a flower, or floats on an ocean, or grows from a cosmic tree. That's the thing about myths. They're less about consistency and more about meaning. You get different metaphors for different truths. Here's your historical fact for tonight. In many Hindu traditions, the earth isn't depicted as a sphere, or a flat disk for that matter, but as a vast lotus flower blooming from the navel of Vishnu, who sleeps upon the coils of a serpent named Ananta. Ananta means endless, and that name isn't a metaphor. The serpent loops into infinity. You do the math. This is how creation begins, according to the Puranas. Vishnu rests on the serpent in the primordial ocean, and from his navel emerges a lotus. And from the lotus, wait for it, comes Brahma, the creator god. Brahma then creates the universe, populating it with stars and sages and stories. You don't have to follow the logistics too closely. The image is what matters. The lotus isn't just a flower, it's the unfolding of reality itself. A symbol of divine birth, order from chaos, beauty from mud, and floating not far beneath this divine botany, still the turtle. Because in some traditions, Vishnu may be lounging on a flower in the middle of the ocean, but the ocean itself, is resting on the back of a giant turtle. Reality is layered like that. You think you're standing on solid ground, but behind every what is another what, all the way down to an old sleepy-eyed reptile paddling through time. One fringe tidbit? In certain versions of the Jain cosmology, there are even more fantastical supports. Gigantic beings, celestial wheels, and elaborate palaces of diamond. In one obscure Jain manuscript, the Earth rests on an elaborate geometric lattice made of cosmic energy that resonates with sacred sound. And yet, even there, you'll sometimes find a turtle lingering near the base of it all, never in the spotlight, but always supporting. Philosophers still debate whether these turtle and lotus metaphors were ever meant to be literal. Were they cosmological diagrams, allegorical spiritual maps, meditative imagery? Some scholars argue that ancient Indian cosmology wasn't really about the physical shape of the earth. It was about its place in the moral and spiritual cosmos. And so the lotus isn't just where the world comes from, it's where the soul comes from too. You let your thoughts drift there, to a world that blossoms rather than explodes, that opens slowly, petal by petal, rather than bursting chaotically into being. It's a calmer model of the cosmos, one that aligns better with bedtime than big bangs and black holes. And here's a curious connection. In some South Indian temples, you'll find giant carvings of both turtles and lotuses together. At first glance, it looks decorative, but take a moment. The turtle represents the physical foundation. The lotus represents spiritual awakening. One grounds you, the other lifts you. Together, they describe a universe that is both real and sacred, solid and blooming, slow and radiant. You imagine lying down on one of those vast petals, curling up with Vishnu's cosmic dreams still echoing faintly in the air. Around you, stars flicker like fireflies. Somewhere below, the turtle swims in silence. Above you, Brahma begins his work, sketching constellations with his 4 arms, humming the syllables of creation into the mist. And you're just floating gently, somewhere between petal and shell, suspended in the space between myths, resting, not just on a turtle's back, but inside the slow, unfolding flower of the universe itself. The lotus fades slowly, its golden light dissolving like candle wax in a warm bath. In its place, a new shape rises into view, sharp, angular, unapologetically solid, a mountain. Not the towering peak of Everest or the icy spire of the Himalayas, but something altogether stranger, Mount Meru. The mythical axis mundi, the cosmic spine, the nail that holds the universe in place. And yes, you guessed it, it might also be balanced on a turtle. You float higher to get a better look. Mount Meru doesn't sit on any continent you'd find on a modern map. Instead, it rises from the center of the world like a divine pushpin, piercing through the many layers of existence. According to ancient Indian cosmology, it's not just the tallest mountain. It's the center of all realms, physical, spiritual, and metaphysical. You're no longer in Kansas, or Earth, really. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Descriptions of Mount Meru appear across a wide variety of ancient Indian texts, Hindu, Jain, and Buddhist alike. In most traditions, it's described as 84,000 yojanas tall. That's about 672,000 miles, give or take. So yes, it's a bit taller than your average hill. It's made of gold, surrounded by rings of alternating oceans and continents, crowned by the city of the gods. And apparently, when the wind brushes against its sides, it produces the sacred OM. But the odd part, the part that keeps mythologists and scholars up at night, is the question of support, because Meru doesn't just float there. No, something has to hold it up. In some texts, it's supported by elephants, as usual. In others, by nagas, giant serpents. But if you dig deeper, especially into regional and folk traditions, the base layer is once again the humble turtle. Imagine that. A golden mountain, taller than the moon, sprouting from a vast disk of land that rests on the backs of 4 elephants who stand on a turtle who swims through a sea of infinity. This isn't a bedtime story anymore. It's a cosmic nesting doll made of metaphors and moonlight. The turtle in this case is often unnamed, or simply called Akupara, a quiet carrier, an unsung stabilizer. No flashy backstory, no dramatic churning scenes, just a calm, unmoving presence beneath all things. You get the sense the ancients liked it that way. The turtle doesn't need a temple. The turtle is the temple. One quirky tidbit you'll love: some medieval cosmological maps drawn in India, like those preserved in Rajasthan, actually feature turtles and elephants in full watercolor regalia, holding up circular continents and sky domes, with Mount Meru sprouting neatly from the middle. These weren't jokes. These were sincere depictions of how reality worked. They weren't embarrassed about the turtle. The turtle was essential. Now, philosophers still debate whether Mount Meru was a literal mountain, an idealized symbol, or a geometric abstraction for meditative purposes. Some say it represents the spine in yogic anatomy. Others argue it mirrors the Himalayas, seen through a mythological lens. And others still, more fringe than mainstream, wonder whether it was once a memory of a vanished peak lost in a forgotten epoch. You drift a little closer and land, just for a moment, on the turtle's shell. It's warm, smooth like river-polished stone. You look up and Mount Meru towers above you, glowing faintly, its golden peak disappearing into a sky the color of ink. Around it, the circular continent spins slowly, like clock hands on a dream. It's here that you start to realize something. All of these layers, the mountain, the continents, the oceans, the dome of stars, they don't contradict each other. They complement. In this ancient cosmology, the world isn't a puzzle to solve. It's a poem to dwell in. And the turtle? He's the final metaphor. The period at the end of a sacred sentence. You smile, sleepily. Because the logic of the waking world doesn't matter here. Here you're allowed to believe that a mountain can be a nail, that oceans swirl in rings, that the universe can be symmetrical, harmonious, and breathtakingly strange. And as you settle again, resting in that impossible architecture, you feel grounded in a way that modern models of space and time rarely provide. The turtle may not show up in physics textbooks, but tonight it's carrying your imagination to bed. And maybe, just maybe, that's the layer of reality that matters most right now. You're still reclining on the turtle's back, but now your thoughts start to wander. You begin to wonder something a little dangerous for this hour. How many turtles are there? Exactly, 1, 4, 10, or is it turtles all the way down? You've probably heard the phrase. It's a favorite of philosophers, comedians, and sleep-deprived undergrads everywhere. Someone says the Earth is resting on a turtle, and you innocently ask, what's the turtle standing on? And the answer comes, deadpan, another turtle. And that one, another, and so on, forever. Turtles, all the way down. It sounds like a punchline, and sure, today it often is. But the roots of this idea go deeper than most people realize, maybe even deep enough to make you sit up in bed. Here's your mainstream historical fact. The phrase, turtles all the way down, is usually traced back to a 19th or 20th century anecdote. A British philosopher, often William James or Bertrand Russell, depending on who's telling the story, is giving a public lecture on cosmology. A woman in the audience objects, saying that modern science is wrong. The world doesn't float in space, it sits on the back of a turtle. The philosopher, curious, asks what the turtle stands on. Another turtle, she replies. And what's under that? You're very clever, young man, she says, but it's turtles all the way down. But here's the twist. That joke, that story, it didn't come out of nowhere. It's very likely a mutation, maybe even a deliberate satire, of real cosmological ideas that go back to ancient India. In some interpretations of Indian cosmology, particularly among certain regional and oral traditions, the turtle isn't a singular base. It's a recurring pattern, an archetype, a suggestion that existence may have no bottom, that any foundation you find is only another layer waiting to be questioned, a kind of infinite regress, but with shells. Philosophers still debate whether this was meant as a metaphysical claim or a poetic device. Was turtles all the way down a serious attempt to grapple with the mystery of origin, or was it an ancient form of intellectual humility, a way of saying, we don't know, and we're okay with that? Now here's your quirky detail. In some Vedic and Puranic texts, there's actually a name for the idea of infinite layers of existence. It's called Ananta, meaning endless, the same name as the cosmic serpent Vishnu rests upon. Ananta is not just about physical repetition, it's about the idea that truth isn't a final destination. It's an unfolding, a spiraling, a journey you can never quite finish. Much like this bedtime story. So maybe the turtle metaphor wasn't just cosmic scaffolding. Maybe it was a philosophical flex, a playful way to say, hey, even if you dig to the bottom of everything, you still won't find solid ground, just another turtle. Which is either incredibly comforting or deeply annoying, depending on how much sleep you've had. You lie back again and imagine the stack. Each turtle supporting another, each one paddling gently through space. They vary in size, shape, color. One has stars painted on its shell, another glows with bioluminescent algae. A few have temples built right into their backs. You pass hundreds, thousands, maybe millions, and the further down you go, the quieter everything gets. Eventually, the motion stops. You reach the bottom, or so you think. But just as you're about to claim victory, the last turtle turns its sleepy eye toward you. It blinks once, then slowly, deliberately begins to sink. And you realize there is no bottom, no final foundation. Only turtles, only questions, only the slow, spiraling descent into a universe that refuses to explain itself in a tidy sentence. You smile, a little dizzily, because for all our love of answers, maybe it's the questions that keep things afloat. Maybe the real foundation of the universe isn't a turtle, it's curiosity. You let that thought settle into your pillow like a warm weight. Because in a world of infinite turtles, there's no rush to get to the end. You can just drift, and drift, and drift. You're still gliding, ever so gently, through the quiet layers of ancient imagination. But now, something changes. The space around you starts to shimmer, not with stars, but with ink. Thick, curling lines trace patterns across the darkness, like an invisible hand is sketching reality in front of you. Circles inside circles, mountains, oceans, sacred syllables. And then you realize you're looking at a map. Or is it? Because this isn't the kind of map you fold into your glove compartment. No coordinates, no compass rose, no "you are here" sticker. What you're seeing is more like a cosmic mandala, a blueprint of belief, drawn not to scale, but to meaning. This, you realize, is how ancient Indian thinkers drew the universe. And it's nothing like your dusty middle school geography textbook. Here's your historical anchor. Indian cosmological diagrams appear in numerous ancient manuscripts, temple murals, and copper plate inscriptions. The most famous of these are from the Puranas and the Jain cosmological texts. They often show a flat, disc-shaped earth, Jambudvipa, surrounded by concentric oceans and continents, like the ripples from a stone dropped into water. At the very center rises Mount Meru, radiant and symmetrical. Surrounding that, realms of gods, demons, animals, humans, and the unknown. But here's the twist. None of this was meant for Google Maps. These maps weren't about getting from point A to point B. They were philosophical diagrams, meditative tools, sacred schematics for the structure of existence. And yes, sometimes at the very bottom of the drawing, or hidden near the edge, you'd find it. A turtle, curved, silent, holding it all in place with a knowing expression, like it understands something you don't. Which frankly, it probably does. Scholars still debate how these cosmological maps were used. Were they visual aids for temple architects? Did priests meditate on them to align themselves with cosmic order? Or were they mnemonic devices, spiritual flashcards for understanding karma, rebirth, and liberation? You'll get different answers depending on which tradition you follow, and how far down the turtle stack you're willing to go. Now for your quirky tidbit. In some versions of Jain cosmology, the universe is shaped like a person standing with their legs apart and arms outstretched, like a cosmic gingerbread man made of time and karma. In others, it's a series of flat planes, stacked like a multi-tier cake, with hells on the bottom and heavens on the top. But even in these radically different shapes, turtles occasionally show up, not front and center, but tucked along the margins, like cosmic footnotes. And if you look closer, the symmetry of it all is staggering. Every circle, every square, every triangle reflects a deeper idea: balance, order, movement. This wasn't just about the what of the universe, it was about the why, the architecture of ethics, the geometry of soul travel. You drift above one such diagram now. It's enormous, the size of a galaxy. The outermost ring hums with the sound of distant bells. Inside that, an ocean made of ghee. Inside that, a continent shaped like a lotus petal. Inside that, another ocean. Then another landmass. Then another. Each layer vibrates with a different color, a different sound, a different flavor of existence. You're not just looking at a place, you're tasting it, hearing it, dreaming it. And then at the very center, there's Mount Meru again. Glowing, towering, unmoving. But beneath it, ah yes, there's the turtle. You spot it, etched lightly in gold, as if the artist didn't want to make too big a deal of it. But there it is, as always, supporting, enduring, holding the whole cosmic doodle in place. You let yourself spin slowly above this ancient map, dizzy in the best way. It's nothing like your modern models of the solar system. No elliptical orbits, no asteroid belts, just nested meaning, sacred geometry, and a reminder that once upon a time, people weren't just trying to describe the world, they were trying to understand it, to make sense of its moral structure, its unseen forces, its turtle-shaped foundations. And honestly, maybe they were onto something. Because when you look at the world through their eyes, through this map, it suddenly feels a little less random, a little more intentional, like there's a pattern beneath the chaos, a rhythm behind the noise. So you close your eyes, still floating above this diagram, and feel yourself become a part of it. Not an outsider looking in, but a shape within the shape, a note in the music, a speck on the turtle's shell. And with that thought, you drift quietly onward into the next layer of the myth. You drift now above the outer edges of that sacred map, and something strange begins to rustle in the cosmic breeze. A faint tremor, a vibration that tickles your eardrums. Then you hear it, the rumble of footsteps, not human, heavier, wilder. The air thickens. You glance upward, and there, above the domed sky of this ancient diagram, come the celestial beasts. You didn't think this was going to be just turtles, did you? In ancient Indian cosmology, the sky isn't empty, it's teeming. And as you rise into the heavens of these layered mythologies, you're introduced to the rest of the metaphysical zoo. Sky elephants, rainbow serpents, flying horses, cosmic birds the size of cities. Tonight you've got front row seating for a menagerie of myth. Let's start with the elephants. Mainstream historical fact incoming. In many Puranic and Buddhist cosmologies, the cardinal directions are guarded by elephants. Yes, elephants. Each direction has its own celestial pachyderm, known as Dikpalas or Lokapalas, who stabilize space itself with their quiet strength. In some traditions, there are 8 elephants, one for each cardinal and intercardinal point, each with its own name, color, and personality. Airavata, the king of them all, is a massive, multi-headed white elephant who carries Indra, the god of thunder, on his back. These aren't circus elephants. They're pillars of reality. Their trunks stir the winds, their steps shake the heavens. One of them sneezed once, legend says, and invented the monsoon. And what are they standing on? Some say clouds. Some say cosmic lotuses. And some traditions, even in Buddhist cosmological scrolls, depict them standing atop the shell of a turtle. Yes, again, it always comes back to the turtle. But that's just the beginning. Above the elephants flap the wings of Garuda, a golden eagle-like being with the face of a man and the speed of thought. He's Vishnu's mount, born of fire, enemy of serpents. In stories, he doesn't fly. He tears through space. And some versions of the cosmology say that Garuda's wings cause the wind to blow, the days to pass, the worlds to turn. Then there are the Nagas, serpent deities who slither through the lower skies and the oceans below. Some are wise, some are wrathful, all are powerful. In some depictions, they loop around the earth like belts, holding it steady with coils of divine muscle. Occasionally, they fight with Garuda. Sky drama. And here's your quirky tidbit. In some lesser-known folk traditions from southern India and Sri Lanka, people believe thunder is the sound of celestial elephants galloping across the firmament, or, depending on the mood of the storyteller, the turtle hiccuping beneath the weight of all those mythological freeloaders. Either way, the heavens are noisy. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Scholars still debate whether these sky creatures were meant to be literal forces of nature, symbolic aspects of the psyche, or ritual placeholders for complex astronomical knowledge. Some believe the elephants represent the fixed stars, while Garuda could be a metaphor for solar motion. Others suggest that these beings represent archetypes, protection, chaos, change, stability, woven into myth to make the emotional structure of the cosmos feel personal. You lie back, watching the sky elephants thunder across the heavens in slow motion. They leave behind trails of mist and music. Garuda streaks past you like a comet made of golden fire, and somewhere far below, the turtle swims on, utterly unbothered. It's at this point in the story where you begin to realize something subtle but powerful. The universe imagined by these ancient thinkers isn't a dead machine. It's alive. It has moods, tempers, guardians, friends, even arguments. It's not just made of matter, it's made of relationships. And those relationships go up and down the chain. The turtle holds the world, the elephants hold the directions, the sky creatures hold the seasons. Everything supports something else. It's not a hierarchy. It's a system of care, a mythic ecology. You breathe that in, deep, slow. Maybe the world isn't fragile because it's balanced on a turtle. Maybe it's stable because it is. Because in these stories, even the clouds have feelings. Even the wind has a job. You float higher still, until the sound of the elephants fades into the hush of stars. The air grows thin and you begin to feel it, that crisp edge of sleep brushing your thoughts. Still above you, the sky animals drift like constellations not yet named, and far beneath, ever steady, the turtle remains. The stars blink out, one by one, as if someone's gently dimming the cosmic lights. You're weightless now, drifting in a soft darkness that hums with rhythm. Not the chaotic rhythm of drum beats or storms, but the slow tectonic beat of time itself. Time, in this mythic space, doesn't tick. It flows, rolls, spirals, and if you listen closely, you can almost hear it breathing. Welcome to the Yugas. In ancient Indian cosmology, time isn't a straight road. It's a wheel, endlessly turning through vast cycles called Yugas. 4 of them, like seasons stretched across millions of years. Satya Yuga, the golden age of truth and purity. Treta Yuga, where truth fades slightly. Dvapara Yuga, where balance teeters on a thread. And Kali Yuga, the dark age, the one we're in now, where things fall apart and turtles shake their heads in disappointment. Mainstream historical fact, these Yuga cycles are laid out in the Mahabharata and elaborated in the Puranas. Together, they form a Mahayuga, or Great Age, lasting 4.32 million years. 1,000 of those equals 1 day of Brahma, the creator god. And when Brahma sleeps, the universe dissolves. When he wakes, it starts again. A day and night of Brahma together lasts 8.64 billion years, almost exactly the current estimated age of Earth's solar system. Coincidence? Or is the turtle onto something? Each yuga is marked not just by time, but by character, morality, cosmic alignment. In Satya Yuga, people lived for thousands of years, spoke only truth, and spent their days meditating under sacred trees. No traffic, no taxes, no reality shows. But with each passing yuga, things decay, lifespans shorten, wars increase, and humans forget their connection to the divine. In Kali Yuga, the one you're drifting through now, it's all noise, ego, confusion. People cut down forests, lose sleep, invent social media. You know, the usual. But here's where it gets beautiful. Even in the darkest yuga, the cycle continues. Just like the seasons, Kali Yuga will pass, the wheel will turn, and a new Satya Yuga will dawn. That's the promise encoded in the turtle's steady breath. No matter how broken the world feels, it is always becoming whole again. And now for your quirky tidbit. In some temple rituals in Tamil Nadu, priests perform ceremonial turtle walks to represent the slow passing of the yugas. They move in circles, mimicking the turtle's pace, chanting hymns that describe time not in seconds or hours, but in ages and aeons. It's both ridiculous and sublime. Imagine explaining that to your smartwatch. Philosophers still debate whether the yuga system is meant to be historical, metaphorical, or predictive. Some interpret it as a spiritual allegory, a way of understanding human consciousness in decline and renewal. Others suggest it encodes ancient astronomical cycles, like the precession of equinoxes. Still others see it as a social commentary, an ancient way to say things used to be better with a bit more poetry. But tonight, lying back on your imaginary raft above the universe, it feels like more than metaphor. It feels real. Time doesn't need to be linear. Maybe it never was. Maybe we're not racing forward. Maybe we're just circling slowly, like a turtle tracing spirals in the sand. You watch the ages drift past you, glowing like rings on a tree. In one, sages sit by rivers that sing hymns. In another, kings ride chariots that hum with celestial power. In another still, machines blink with artificial intelligence, and nobody remembers why the turtle mattered. But the turtle remembers. He's seen it all before. He'll see it again. For him, yugas are just seasons, just tides. And you're just a drop in that tide. Brief, yes, but part of something much, much older. As you float in this infinite loop, the pace of your thoughts begins to match the turtle's. Slow, peaceful, rhythmic. Maybe life isn't about rushing from beginning to end. Maybe it's about riding the wave of an age with grace until the next one comes. And in the meantime, perhaps the wisest thing you can do is move a little slower. Think a little deeper. Breathe like a turtle. The wheel of time continues to spin gently beneath you, and now you feel yourself descending, not upward toward the heavens and flying beasts, not into the past or into the rhythm of yugas, but downward, beneath the lotus, beneath the oceans, beneath even the turtle's shell, into the underworlds. But this isn't a hell of fire and brimstone. This is Patala. In ancient Indian cosmology, Patala is the name given to the subterranean realms, the netherworlds layered beneath the surface of Earth. You might expect these to be places of torment or judgment, like the Greek Hades or Dante's Inferno, but Patala isn't like that. It's stranger, softer, and in some ways more luxurious than the world above. You descend slowly, and the light turns a velvety purple. Jewels glitter in the stone. Palaces rise from the deep, their walls made of crystal and emerald. Snakes, yes, snakes, slither peacefully between golden columns. These are the Nagas, serpent beings with human faces and godlike wisdom, rulers of these realms. Their eyes glow not with malice, but with memory. Mainstream historical note. The idea of Patala appears in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Puranas. It's one of the 7 or sometimes 14 lokas, or realms of existence, stacked beneath the human world. Each level is home to beings of different qualities, some dangerous, some divine, all woven into the cosmic fabric. And here's the part that makes your head tilt. These underworlds aren't always places of punishment. In fact, many texts describe them as more beautiful, more advanced, and even more peaceful than the world above. Down here, the air is thick with incense. Lakes glow with liquid moonlight. Time drips instead of ticks. And floating beneath it all, yes, you guessed it, there's the great turtle again. In some versions of the story, the entire set of underworlds is nestled within or upon his vast shell, like a tiered temple of secrets. He is both the foundation and the threshold. You glide through these shadowed realms and begin to notice that the deeper you go, the stranger things get. One realm pulses with red light, filled with trees that whisper forgotten languages. Another's home to beings made entirely of sound, no bodies, only echoes. Still another seems to loop back on itself. Every step forward deposits you exactly where you began. Cosmic recursion. The turtle doesn't flinch. Here's a quirky little detail. In some folk stories, it's said that tunnels from Patala occasionally open up on Earth, especially in remote caves or under sacred temples. These aren't always dramatic gateways with smoke and chanting. Sometimes it's just a quiet place that feels too still, too deep, like something is watching from just behind the silence. A turtle eye? Perhaps. Philosophers and scholars still debate the purpose of Patala in the cosmological model. Is it symbolic of unconscious mind states, spiritual ignorance, or simply an acknowledgement that not all wisdom lives in the light? One school of thought suggests that these subterranean realms represent aspects of the self, layers of identity, memory, and karma buried beneath awareness. In this view, exploring Patala is a kind of meditation, a descent into your own internal cosmos. And if that's the case, the turtle is more than a beast of burden. He is the keeper of your hidden self, the guide through shadow, the foundation of the depths. You float beside one of the Naga kings now, his hooded cobra crest fanned wide like a jeweled parasol. He does not speak. He only gestures upward with one pale clawed hand, as if to say, everything rests on something, even we. You look down and beneath the translucent floor of Patala, you see it, the shell, the curve, the quiet motion of flippers that have never stopped moving. It is vast. You could place 1,000 Earths on its back and still have room for your worries, but it doesn't notice you. Or maybe it does. Maybe that subtle tremor you feel in the underworld's air is its silent breath. You breathe in time with it, slow, steady, old, and something clicks into place. The universe in this vision isn't structured like a pyramid with heaven on top and hell below. It's a sphere of interwoven layers, a lattice of meaning, a slow dance of realms, resting gently on the curved back of something that never speaks, never sleeps, and never lets go. So you let yourself sink just a little more, down into the warmth of Patala's quiet elegance. You let go of the need to ascend for now. Because sometimes wisdom waits in the depths, and sometimes what lies beneath isn't darkness, but an ancient shell covered in stars. You rise again now, gently, as if exhaling from a dream within a dream. The jeweled caverns of Patala fall away behind you, and you ascend slowly through the oceans of myth, back toward the middle layers of the universe. But this time, something shifts. Your perspective deepens. The turtle you thought you understood changes. You begin to suspect that all this time you've been watching symbols, not animals. Machines, not myths. The turtle is no longer just a turtle. It's something more. You hover in a strange space now, where metaphors ripple and fold like origami in a heated breeze. The turtle's shell glints with something familiar. Hexagonal patterns like circuit boards, lines like veins, a geometry too perfect to be accidental. Could it be a map, a message, a mechanism? Let's pause and breathe in one historical anchor. In later philosophical schools like Vedanta and Samkhya, ancient Indian thinkers took the metaphors of mythology and began interpreting them more abstractly. They argued that the turtle, Kurma, Akupara Ananta, was never just a creature. It was a symbol of supporting structure, of endurance, of the substratum behind all perceived reality. To use more modern terms, it was the operating system of the universe. You let that sink in. The turtle isn't in the cosmos, it is the cosmos, or rather, the container of the cosmos. The frame. The infrastructure. And here comes the quirky bit. Some ancient texts explicitly describe the turtle's back as covered in markings, sacred diagrams, mandalas, even a form of cosmic script. In one obscure tantric scroll from medieval Kashmir, a yogi writes that meditating on the turtle's shell is like gazing into the wiring of Brahman, the absolute reality behind all appearances. In other words, the turtle is a user interface. You float beside that shell now, and the lines shimmer with subtle light. Each groove tells a story. Each scale radiates a principle. You see karma inscribed in a spiral, dharma flowing like a river across its ridge, desire, fear, knowledge, all playing out on a grid that looks strangely like a motherboard from a dimension you've never visited. Philosophers still debate whether ancient myths about karma were rooted in literal beliefs or served as allegories for metaphysical systems. Some scholars argue that the turtle stands in for Prakriti, the underlying material substance of the universe in Samkhya philosophy, while others believe it represents Maya, the illusion of form that carries the divine play of consciousness. And then there are the fringe theories, the ones whispered in forgotten corners of the internet and among monks who smile without explaining why. Some say the turtle is a code, a simulation frame, that these myths are ancient ways of saying the world you know isn't solid. It's supported by something deeper, something you can't measure, something slow and silent and impossibly stable. You lean closer to the shell and notice one particular marking, an infinity loop nestled within a flower. A lotus in the shape of an electrical current. It pulses once as you pass, and you suddenly remember the churning mountain, the ocean of milk, the rope serpent, the god asleep on the flower, the ages that rise and fall, the underworld cities with their silent serpent kings. All of them, the entire mythic universe is being carried, not like luggage, but like memory, like code, like a simulation running on a divine tortoise-shaped hard drive. And what does that make you? Maybe just a subroutine, maybe a dream within a larger consciousness, maybe just a voice echoing inside a loop of ancient thought. Or maybe you're the observer, the dreamer waking slowly inside the turtle's imagination. You look around again, and the whole story reconfigures. The turtle is no longer below you, it is all around you. You're inside the shell now. Not sitting on top of the universe, but inside the logic of its metaphors. And the feeling is peaceful, unsettling, perfect. Because even if the turtle is a machine, or a metaphor for a machine, it still serves the same purpose: to hold everything, to allow everything, to endure. You exhale and watch your breath curl across the surface of this cosmic code shell. The stars bend slightly in response. Somewhere, a voice you'll never hear whispers a sacred syllable. And the turtle moves, so slowly you can barely tell. But it moves, and that's enough to keep the universe running. You're not sure when the machine shell fades, or when the turtle's grid lines dissolve into mist. But now something familiar begins to shimmer at the edge of your vision. Echoes, ideas, stories you've heard before, in other places, from other cultures. You start to notice strange similarities, uncanny resonances between ancient Indian cosmology and the myths of distant civilizations. You're about to see how far the turtle's influence really reaches. As you drift gently across the silk-like fabric of time, you arrive in ancient Greece. The philosophers here don't talk much about turtles, not directly, but their minds are swimming in metaphysics, just like their Indian counterparts. You hover beside Plato as he sketches his vision of the universe, a realm of perfect forms above, imperfect reflections below. His cosmos is orderly, nested, rotating in precise harmonies. It isn't supported by a turtle, but by pure reason, by divine geometry. And yet, there's something about the structure, the symmetry, the idea that beneath appearances, there's a deeper pattern. Doesn't that sound familiar? Mainstream historical fact. Scholars have long noted striking parallels between ancient Greek and Indian cosmologies. Both traditions speak of cycles of time, of layered realities, of a deeper truth beneath sensory experience. In fact, during the Hellenistic period, when Alexander's armies pushed into northwest India, there was real cultural exchange between Greek and Indian philosophers. Some even suggest that early Stoics and Samkhya philosophers may have been sipping similar intellectual nectar, if not from the same jug, then at least from adjacent ones. Now you glide eastward toward China. There, in ancient Taoist texts, you find another curious echo. The turtle shows up again, not just as a symbol of longevity, but as a divinatory tool. The I Ching, the great book of changes, was first consulted by heating turtle shells and interpreting the cracks. In Taoist cosmology, the turtle represents the north, the element of water, and the wisdom of slow endurance. Its curved shell mirrors the sky, and its flat belly mirrors the earth. Sound familiar? In some versions of the Chinese creation myth, the primordial giant Pangu dies, and from his body the world is formed. His bones become mountains. His breath becomes wind. And in some stories, a great turtle helps prop up the sky when it threatens to collapse. Turtles, apparently, make excellent scaffolding across cultures. Here's your quirky tidbit for this section. In Cambodia and parts of Southeast Asia, there are ancient temples where the turtle is carved into the foundations, sometimes as an actual stone base beneath a shrine. Locals still refer to these stones as the turtle that holds the world, and some believe that if you press your hand to the sculpture and close your eyes, you can feel the turtle's heartbeat. So what's going on here? Is this a case of cultural diffusion? Turtle memes migrating across trade routes and through merchant stories? Or is there something deeper, stranger, more Jungian? An archetype that arises again and again because the image of the turtle resonates with something fundamental in the human psyche. Philosophers still debate this. Were these civilizations independently arriving at similar symbolic solutions to the same ontological questions? Or did some forgotten traveler tell a story about a turtle so vivid that it spread from India to Egypt to China like a mythic virus? Either way, the turtle isn't confined to India. It's global, and it's always doing the same thing: supporting, balancing, enduring, being a base. You lie back and let these global myths drift over you like clouds. Plato's spheres, Chinese dragons, Mayan turtle stones, Native American sky worlds resting on turtle shells. Even in West Africa, stories abound of turtles carrying wisdom, holding up creation, or teaching gods how to slow down and listen. Everywhere you look, the turtle shows up. Different names, different shells, but always the same job. Always holding the weight of someone else's dream. And maybe that's the point. The image isn't just about the structure of the universe. It's about the nature of support, of bearing the weight of others without needing recognition, of being still while everything else spins. So you rest in this truth, stretched across continents and centuries, a soft, shared myth, a global sigh. And in the silence that follows, you wonder, maybe the universe was always trying to tell the same story. It just needed a turtle to carry it. You float now in the quiet space between stories and science, between shells and equations. Myth has carried you this far, but suddenly you start to sense something colder, more clinical, pressing at the edges of your thoughts. Numbers, models, data points. It's as if the modern world has gently intruded into the dreamscape. And oddly enough, it doesn't break the spell. Because science, it turns out, has its own turtles. Not literal ones, of course. No astronomer is pointing a telescope at a tortoise constellation and announcing it holds up the Earth. But the deeper physicists dive into the nature of reality, the more they find themselves speaking in riddles again. In metaphors, in Myths. You hover near a blackboard now, covered in chalk equations and particle diagrams. Below it stands a physicist in a rumpled shirt, rubbing his temples and muttering about quantum foam. He's trying to explain what supports the structure of space-time itself. And the answer? He doesn't really know. Mainstream historical fact. In modern physics, especially in quantum field theory and cosmology, scientists describe the universe as emerging from a mysterious vacuum, a kind of energetic nothingness that constantly fluctuates. Particles pop in and out of existence. Space may not be smooth, it may be grainy, pixelated, like a cosmic shell. Some theorists even describe this as a quantum fabric, a substrate upon which reality rides. A field, a lattice, a ground layer. Sound familiar? Some call it string theory. Others speak of M theory, or the holographic principle, where our universe might be a projection of deeper dimensions. Still others suggest we're living in a simulation. Our reality run on some incomprehensible code, turtles replaced by algorithms. But the metaphor remains, a base, a foundation, something unseen, holding up everything else. And here's your quirky tidbit. Some theoretical physicists, when explaining quantum gravity to laypeople, have been known to joke, yes, with a wink, that it's turtles all the way down. They're half kidding, but only half, because modern science, for all its precision and power, keeps running into the same mystery that ancient sages pondered beneath banyan trees. What is the universe resting on? In Indian cosmology, it was a turtle. In physics, it's energy fields, mathematical constants, maybe vibrating strings. But the question remains, is the foundation of reality something physical, or conceptual, or conscious? Philosophers still debate it, only now they wear lab coats. Some argue that consciousness itself is fundamental, not matter. That awareness is the real turtle, and everything else emerges from it. Others claim it's information, the basic binary code of the cosmos, 1 and 0, being and not being, a cosmic yes-no generator that builds stars and thoughts alike. And then there are the simulation theorists, who suggest that our universe is an elaborate program running on an incomprehensible processor in a higher reality. You, they say, are an avatar, a projection, a spark in a system. It's not turtles all the way down, it's servers. Somewhere, a cosmic developer is checking the logs, possibly sipping coffee. You drift through this idea like smoke through a fan. It's disorienting, sure, but also oddly comforting. Because in the end, all these modern theories are just newer ways of trying to answer the same old question, what holds us? And maybe it's okay that we don't know. Maybe uncertainty is part of the architecture. Maybe the turtle, whether shelled or simulated, was always a symbol for something that can't be touched or measured. Something slow, something silent, something still. You let the chalkboard fade, let the equations dissolve, and once again, you feel it, that ancient presence beneath all the questions. The same calm breath, the same slow heartbeat, the same steady support. It doesn't matter if it's a turtle, a tensor field, or an alien AI running base code. What matters is that something is carrying all of this. Your breath, your thoughts, the stars, the silence between words. So you settle again into that knowing, that not knowing, that weightless place between physics and fables. And the turtle once more drifts up to meet you, not to explain anything, but simply to be there, still holding the world, still holding you. You're weightless now, floating near the edge of the dream. The myths have been told, the stars have been turned over in your palms, and the turtle, so ancient, so humble, has carried you through all of it. But before we drift into silence, there's one final idea to explore. One last ripple in this cosmic pond. It's not about the heavens, or the underworld, or even time. It's about wisdom. Because when the dust of symbols and metaphors settles, and you're left lying quietly with your thoughts in the dark, the question isn't, what is the universe sitting on anymore? It's, what is the story trying to tell me? And the answer, strangely enough, might be about you. In almost every culture that has a turtle myth, and there are many, the creature is not only a supporter of the world, it is a symbol of wisdom, of patience, of longevity. The turtle is not fast, it is not flashy, it does not roar or glow or breathe fire, but it endures, it moves forward without rush, carries the weight without complaint, and somehow always finds its way home. Mainstream historical fact. In Indian lore, turtles and tortoises are not only mythic cosmological symbols, but also appear in ritual, art, and philosophy. The Kurma Purana, one of the 18 Mahapuranas, is literally named after the turtle form of Vishnu. In yogic thought, the Kurma Nadi is an energy channel that helps the practitioner withdraw the senses inward, just like a turtle pulling into its shell. The comparison is deliberate. To be like the turtle is to cultivate inner stillness. Withdrawal, not as escape, but as wisdom. Here's your quirky final detail. In certain Hindu temples, turtles live peacefully in sacred ponds. People feed them flowers and fruit, not for luck, not for merit, just to honor the one who carries everything without asking for anything. A thank you whispered across centuries. You hover now above the cosmic turtle one last time. He hasn't changed, still drifting through space, still carrying a mountain, a serpent, a tree, a flower, an elephant, a lotus, a world, and all the stories ever told. He doesn't look tired. If anything, he looks timeless. And maybe that's the final lesson, that the truest form of wisdom isn't brilliance or speed or dominance, it's steadiness. The ability to carry what matters across impossible distances, the quiet strength to endure without the need to shine, the grace to move slowly enough that you never miss the beauty blooming under your own feet. Philosophers still debate whether the turtle is a literal creature, a cosmic metaphor, or just a charming relic of ancient imagination. But you don't need to debate. You've been there. You've seen the shell. You've heard the silence. You've floated through the stars in the spaces between his steady breaths. And now, maybe you understand. The turtle doesn't just hold the world. He teaches you how to live in it. Not with haste, but with rhythm. Not with noise, but with purpose. Not with fear, but with something deeper. Something that glows slow and golden at the very center of all things. Like a heartbeat in the dark. Like the sound of the universe breathing in its sleep. Like you. And now we ease into stillness. You're floating slowly through the very last wisps of story. The stars above have dimmed to pinpricks. The great turtle, ever patient, recedes into the background, still there, always there, but softer now, like the memory of a lullaby you used to know. The ocean is calm again. The churn has stopped. The gods and demons have returned to their realms. The cosmic mountain has gone still. Even the serpents sleep. And you, dear listener, are suspended in the quiet curve between worlds. Let the rhythm of the story fade into your breath. Slow, gentle, turtle-paced. Inhale, exhale. There's no rush to leave this place. The myths will stay with you. Not just as tales, but as feelings. As symbols stitched into your imagination. As soft reminders that even the most impossible universe needs a foundation. And that foundation, however strange, however ancient, however humble, might be something like stillness, something like kindness, something like you. The turtle is not gone. He's just resting now, beneath your dreams. Let him carry you a little longer. Let the vastness of the cosmos settle into something soft and safe. You are held, you are steady, you are part of the old, slow magic that has carried the world from the beginning. Sleep well, traveler. The turtle's still awake. Sweet dreams.